This is the North End. This is the North End.
Hello, North Enders. It is the North End YouTube channel, and I'm with Mr. David Convery and Mr. Paul Forrest. We got a bit of an old school setup going on here. It is the lads, the originals, and lots to talk about. Lots going on. It's a silly season, and you know we all love this season and hate it at the same time. I feel like you guys are hating it like I usually hate it, and I'm loving it like you guys usually love it. And so that's kind of nice for a change. But Paul, how are you, sir? It's good to see you. I knew he was going to make a face. I was waiting for his Paul's face.
We are still just a week into this window.
I'm just having fun with you, man. I'm just saying things because it's fun to say. That's all.
Yeah, it's good. It's cute to see other teams have a couple of signings and then think that all of a sudden they're like they're like the experts in this world of
but for Spurs fans right now, it's a bit more than that. But I get what you're saying, and that's fair. Connie, good to see you, buddy. How are you, man? You're glowing a little bit there. You're glowing a little bit.
I just like to call it, like, it's so funny to see in like the new social media world. Like, yeah, Spurs make a couple of signings, some other teams do. Like, there have been some big signings like Haaland and Nunez. I'm sure we'll chat about that. But then, and it's not just United, but like Chelsea and Arsenal. And Paul's right. We're what, 3 or 4 days in?
Oh,
they're
it's
like,
so early. It's so
my
early.
club is a joke. Do something. Do this. It's like, dude, we're 4 days in. Like, yeah, we all want action, but Jesus Christ.
The thing for us, Dave, is that for us, this is what's just happened in the last 2 weeks is what normally takes place after, like, at the very end of the window when we're panicking the entire summer.
But
so that's
you've had a manager in place for a while, and there's a lot of speculation about him leaving. I imagine when he kind of decided to say, okay, I'm staying on for this project, a lot of this work had been done earlier. Like, United have a new manager. Who knows what's been going on at Chelsea? So I think the whole Tottenham thing, and everyone's like, oh my God, look at Tottenham. You have Conte as your manager. He's asking. He's not even asking. He's demanding, and he's getting. You know what? And good for Spurs fans. Good for you, Brian. Like,
it's just weird because we're not used to it. So
yeah,
anyway,
but
it's good. And I know that you're not. You guys aren't used to necessarily being.
4 days, man. 4 days into a window.
Being in a scenario where, like, because we talked about the Basuma thing, which we'll get to, so I'm going to save it.
I was going to say, we have a lot to unpack with signings.
I'm going to throw it over to
Ryan.
Paul now,
if you're worried about
my intro has gone on for far too long. So
if you're worried about like the United fans not being used to anything, we are status quo right now. Everything that's happening right now is exactly what always happens. Every single transfer window. Some of us are happy
in that scenario, so I'm just.
Some of us are going crazy because they're impatient. Some of us are reading too much every single day, the clickbait articles. Some of us don't understand that you can't sign players while they're on international duty. Calm down.
I'm kind of all of those things too, but I'm with Brian though. It's funny and it's fun, but I will officially say I'm knee deep in it now. I'm up till 1 a.m. watching YouTube videos of guys I've never heard of, and I can't stop. When this starts, I literally cannot stop until like the window. I'm a psychopath, but I love it. I love it.
This should be what you do for this channel. Is you talk about what you looked at.
Oh, buddy.
1 a.m. The next day goes kids up till 1 a.m. These are the players. Anyway, this is a
I'm ready. I'm ready.
Oh my God, have we heard this before? This is like Groundhog Day. Connie decides he's excited about some content. We say you should do something. He says, "Yeah, I'm ready. And then
crickets.
Maybe by
I
the
do
end
content.
of the video,
Crickets.
yeah, you do great content. Big guy.
I do content.
You do big boy content all the time.
I don't think mine's a little bit more relevant than others, but okay.
Let's get back to it.
Oh my! Shots across the bow.
Throw shots. The banter is on already, guys.
Kind of like a development that I find wildly confusing, and it's a situation with Son. And the reason why it's confusing is that this guy just had one of the best seasons you can have in the Premier League. You can have as a left forward, attacking forward, whatever you want to call him. But for some reason has gone under the radar every single time there's been a round of like recognition or awards. He's just not in the conversation. The latest conversation that happened was the PFA Team of the Year was announced. He is not, for some reason, in this, despite winning the Golden Boot, co-chair of the Golden Boot. I don't understand how this is allowed to happen and why people aren't going, wait a second. Like Sadio Mane had a okay season below par for him. They didn't win the title. They had a title race. And he gets the position I think that would easily have gone to
Should have
Son.
gone to Son. Yeah, 100%.
Like
Without
not
question.
even, not even debatable.
It's
And
not
then I look
debatable.
at the PFA and I'm like, again, Liverpool had a good season, but they came in second and they've got 5 guys. And the team that actually won have got 6 guys. And the team that actually won have got 3.
3? Yeah.
Hold on. I'll throw it out here that I agree with every single choice that has been picked here outside of Mane, and I think you nailed it, Paul. Like I don't even think it's a fucking embarrassment that Son is not on that left side. Like I think it's an actual joke. But I have no issue with any other selection on there. In fact, I think the team's accurately picked minus that. But that's just so not even close. I think they did it to be controversial and leave him. I don't know what the thought process is. What's the Spurs world, Sam, bro?
It's not the only time this has happened. I mean, he continuously gets sort of like, even just from our friends' perspective, people like don't rate him. You know, like people on the WhatsApp, oh, he's not world class. You know, it's silly. You know, of course, I get it. It's banter. You're having a laugh and whatnot. But he doesn't get rated. But he continuously is in his position the best in the Premier League and arguably in the world. If we're considering the
Probably
the
the world. Probably like
He-
who's a better left side? Maybe Vinicius Jr. Maybe, but I still think
not
probably
even close.
probably
Statistically,
Son.
Not even close. Sonny
Yeah,
is the best.
Son, right?
His numbers are the best. If you look at his XG, it's just absurd. It's
Yeah.
like 2.4 or 2.8 or something. Like
Who would be the
expected
only
goal.
other one? Nabry, I guess maybe. And I know I'm not pronouncing it.
Not even close.
Yeah,
Gnabry.
it's Son. It's a no brainer.
It's a weird one.
And
But
he
yeah,
hasn't,
it's
he hasn't been
frustrating. Sorry, go
involved
ahead,
in
Paul.
like even the short lists for certain categories. Just like
so
his
the
name.
player the one that the players vote for, they vote for that in like December. And so in December, Sonny had like probably 7 goals and 2 assists, whereas Mohamed Salah had already like had a ton of goals and had been on fire and been leading it like over and above everybody else. So it's just, why are they voting in fucking December? Like it's supposed to be player of the season, not player of the half season. So that's another stupid thing, right? I think that vote would change or would have changed had they just done it at the end of the season, like that makes sense. But it's a strange one. I'm like, why would you do that? Because that would make sense. I think I would have voted for Salah at that point based on his numbers.
Do you think Son's dad would have put him in the PFA player?
I love that. No, I absolutely love that he said that, because that is what his dad, what it's like probably to be to live with his father.
So we can all be clear to the audience about this.
Sorry.
Son's dad was supposedly quoted.
I don't even know how true
saying,
it is, but it's funny one way or the other.
He is thinking that his son needs to get a move and that he needs to be challenged more, and that if he's going to become world class, he needs to go to a bigger stage and
it's got to be trolling. No, I mean, come on, it's got to be. It sounds so like a bitter Arsenal fan or Chelsea fan who's just like would love to have him, but just wants to take the piss at the Spurs fans and make us sweat, because that's what we're used to do.
Apparently his dad made those comments. With a reason, maybe he's trying to get more out of him. Maybe it was like an alert to like the Real Madrids and PSGs, be like, how come you're never coming after this guy? He's like the real. Who knows why he said it, but yeah, Son's fucking awesome. Bottom line, he walks into any team in the Premier League, including Liverpool, over Sadio Mane.
100%. It's not even a question.
He's very good, and it's more about like that's just not fair. Put him on the team. Recognize Premier League.
I wonder, and I know this is a controversial question, and I recognize that this often comes up in these certain questions or scenarios. Is it racist, or is it like is there a stereotype there that I think maybe people won't give him the respect because he's Asian, because how few Asians are successful in world football generally speaking?
I have heard it stated. I've heard it stated where it wasn't. It's not necessarily stated as he's from Korea or he's an Asian player. It's sometimes stated as European players have preferential treatment for these kind of things.
Yeah.
So European is a very broad term that could mean more than just race and skin color. But if you look down the list, it's like Mohamed Salah's African, Sane is African.
For sure.
So
but we've seen a lot of Africans in the Premier League. How many Asians are
I typically tend to go counter, where I'm like, if he's this good and he's coming from a nation that on the biggest stage is not yet
should be.
produced quality, like I almost want to give him credit
The edge,
more so.
I think we do,
Because
and I
he doesn't
agree
come
with
from a
that's the
famous
case.
football nation. It's like if a Canadian was doing really well, I want to give them more credit for being Canadian.
Yeah.
But do you
not
think like
necessarily
the
a
British
football nation.
media or the FA or the people in England or like
Tough
think
to
that way?
know.
Or
Tough
is
to
that
know.
Because I think
You would
that's a
hope not.
But I think
You would
that's a
hope
Canadian.
not.
I think that's a Canadian way of thinking. Very Canadian way of thinking.
So
don't
I think
necessarily
you're
think that's
making
what
an inference that there may
am
be
making
some
an
bias and
I
some
am, yeah.
racism here. Well,
Yeah,
that's-
I think
that's
it's
quite the
possible.
statement.
I
Listen,
think it's possible.
It's
I think
you're and you know what?
I'm
It's
not saying that it
entirely
exists.
possible.
I'm saying that it's
Yeah.
possible. That's what I'm saying.
It's also possible that there's a Spurs bias.
100%, absolutely, and throw my hands up.
Good
in the air.
point. Good point.
I
But you
have
know,
I have no problem with accepting that.
While we talk about Spurs bias, let's get into the next development. Supposedly,
Get in
he's
there.
Basuma for something
Here we
in
go.
the range of 25
go.
to maybe 30. Let's guess because we haven't. The final number hasn't been announced. Yet. It's
29,
not a done
apparently.
deal.
29
Done
is
deal.
the deal. Yeah,
It's not done until the photo is up on the website.
True.
But
should be
looking like
tomorrow. Should be announced.
it's going to be done. I mean, let's just be clear. We've always said
What a
for
player.
the entire season, last season and the season before, I certainly have been on record many times as saying this guy can fucking ball.
Yeah.
Oh,
He was attached to a lot of teams. Arsenal heavily attached to him. Fans of lots of clubs like Man United attached him to their own club, even though that doesn't necessarily mean there's anything going on. I was expecting some sort of bidding war, some sort of understanding that he is a big get, Premier League proven, high quality, lovely and talented. Multiple teams should be pressing for this guy, driving his eventual sell price up. And that didn't seem to happen at all. It seemed like it was a one-horse race. It was straightforward. It didn't seem like Brighton were interested in holding anybody ransom for this player. And to get this player for less than 40 is a steal, but to get him for something close to 25 to 30 is unbelievable. And I
But
don't know
hold
how
on
it
though.
happened.
But hold on, and
So
I didn't know this.
But let's
1 year
caveat
left
it-
on the contract. One
Well,
year
that's
left
what
on
I
the
was just gonna say.
contract.
I was literally
Yeah.
just going to say that. Let's caveat it with that. Like, that's the likelihood. Of course, there's going to be a little bit potential for what's happened off the pitch, and of course, that's a different conversation. And I don't know if any of us have enough information to speak about it accurately. Maybe you do. Maybe
we can
Paul, you've
speak
looked
about
up some.
We
I mean,
could speak
accurately
to it.
though. I
We
mean,
could
because
just say that there's a pending criminal case.
No,
and leave
I
it
can
at
easily
that.
speak to it in that if you guys don't know, the audience, again, it may be that other teams weren't going for him because there are some off the field legal things that still have to resolve themselves.
Well, I know saying that. I'm just
I
talking
can
about the details.
easily. I'm not getting into details because that's getting into the criminality of it. We're
Of
not
course,
doing
that's
that.
what-
I'm
that was what I
suggesting that those pending cases may warrant other teams not going in for him. I can tell you, for example,
for sure.
anyone who's a Man United fan who is like, we should go for this guy. Man United are definitely not going to go for a player who's anything to do with the police right now. We have Mason Greenwood filling that role.
Yeah, it doesn't
entirely.
help your current situation for sure.
There's a PR element to any business, and you just do not do that. So unfortunately, he was never going to be a possibility for us, either because of his own situation or because Mason Greenwood's situation. Doesn't really matter. But Man United, we're not going to be going for this guy. But that doesn't mean I'm not surprised that somebody, even across Europe, wasn't going to go for this guy because he could walk into so many European teams.
So good.
And
He's so good.
It's not that he went to Spurs. That's not the surprise for me. It's the price tag and the simplicity of the deal, and that there wasn't a bidding war and there wasn't competition for this player, even drummed up by his agent or Brighton. This still feels like it was just too smooth to be
I
true.
love it. I don't know what's happening with the world.
And again,
for this to happen as a Spurs fan, guys, this is my point. The whole point about these things happening. So the way they're happening, the type of players they're happening with, it's all very strange. But
Here's the thing about this player. Like, Paul put me onto this player last year. I wasn't really super aware of him. And then when I became aware of him, honestly, if I could have handpicked one defensive midfielder in Europe, it would have been this guy and Chouameni, who just went to like he would have been my number 2 pick.
He claimed he's the best midfielder himself. He said, "I'm the best midfielder."
Honestly,
in the
Brian, I
Premier League.
don't
I was
think
like,
you.
yes.
I don't think you have a clue what kind of potential
Oh, I
player you
do,
have.
I do,
Like
I
he
do,
has
I
the
do. I didn't,
potential.
but I do.
He has the potential to transcend your team. Like
So,
he's
like-
there's not a lot he can't do.
He's
so
Conte.
good.
He's the new Conte. Conte brought in Conte at Chelsea. this is the same type of player that
He's
Conte
more
would
of a he's more of an actual. Well, you know what? He can get forward and
better,
score through,
probably.
but he's a marauder in midfield in a sense where Conte's not a big guy. This guy's like going into a 50-50 with Declan Rice. I'll take Basuma 10 out of 10
He's probably
times.
like what you thought Pogba would be or could be.
He's got the
like
stones that I
he's
wish
physical.
Pogba had
He's
on the
physical,
ball,
yeah.
but he's so
No.
technically gifted. He's passing. He can even get forward.
Yeah.
I don't see a weakness in his game.
I don't think he's a Pogba-esque player and that he doesn't distribute the ball the same way
Yeah.
that Pogba does. I don't necessarily agree with any kind of
I wasn't really
comparisons
comparing
one
them.
player to the
I
other.
wasn't comparing them to players. I was comparing
He-
the situation, what they mean to a midfield.
what
what they're gonna bring.
Very
even
different
this guy's got
players.
more. He's got more
Yeah, for
grit.
sure. I know.
And he keeps it simple and he keeps the ball moving. He's a ticker. He's just a very good player. Like I think we're all part of the Basuma like fan club here.
Yeah,
It
he's
really
incredible.
just becomes more of a just an utter shock and awe. And I don't know, like we probably don't need to get too much into like what he brings to Tottenham, but I guess the question for me would be a simple one, maybe. Is he a starter? And if he is a starter in your current best 11, who's dropped because of the arrival of Yves Basuma?
There's a bunch of conversations here, and I've had this a couple times over the last few hours because we did a stream earlier. And what happens with bringing Basuma into the midfield that we have with Skip, Bentancur, and Højbjerg, and then him Basuma. And arguably, Eriksen should be coming in as well. What you've got there is the ability to first of all, depth, which is insane, which you need to play in every competition to win anything. To be able to, if a guy gets injured, the quality of player that comes in is at the same level, and you can rotate properly through the season, which is what we see big clubs do. This is a big club move for Spurs to have this type of depth. So that's the reason for it. It's to ensure that there's depth across the board. We can play in the Champions League. We can. This is Conte's thinking. I'm not saying it's going to happen, but challenge for the title is his. That's what he wants to do. So this is a player you bring in to do that.
I'm going to ask more specifically because I'm not asking.
He probably plays like 30 games, and maybe his equivalent who might shift in and out of the side plays 30 games or 35 games.
So I'm asking Brian. Brian, to you.
I want an answer.
Does he make it into your best 11? If he does, who's he dropping to accommodate?
Probably Højbjerg.
That's it. That's all we need to hear.
I like to counter
both will
that.
play a lot of games.
But if Basuma gets injured and Højbjerg comes in, you're not losing a lot. I mean, you're losing something, but you're not losing a lot. You still got a very good player to fill in. That was my point.
If he wants to, he can also play Basuma and Højbjerg beside one another. And if you end up getting Eriksen or a Bentancur exactly in front of them, and then that can give more freedom to Son and Kane to attack more and get the counter going.
You go from a 3-4-3 to a 3-5-2, and you then have three in the midfield. You can change this. Conte came out and spoke about it. He's like, look, last season I didn't have the option to shift from one setup to another. I wanted to. I didn't have the players. I didn't have the depth in the squad, and this is exactly what he's addressing. And he's also addressing, and I know I keep going on about this, but it's a factor, I think, when it comes to considering the amount of players you need in a squad, is the substitutions, having 5 of them in the Premier League and being able to do those like tactically in a very good way without losing anything. And that seems to be his approach at the moment.
Okay. Well, the other big news that is official, photos on the website and everything, is Nunez to Liverpool for, I mean, if you say euros, it's almost 100 million with add-ons. If you say pounds, it could be 85 million with add-ons. It's not necessarily a record. It's the potential for a record.
Get it right. You don't want Azaz to get upset. Make sure you get it right.
I have two thoughts about that
upset. He's too just chilled, man. Just
two thoughts on that subject. In that, first, if you're spending 65 million for a player, I think what I've seen is that the bonus goals, the payout goals, are all the kind of things that you should be expecting from a 65 million player, anyways. So I actually have no problem considering the total package and the total price of this player as the bonus price, because 65 million should get you 15 goals. So if he's getting,
we've often seen it not though. We've often seen it.
No, and I know it's not, but I'm just like, it's 65 million. There are expectations to go with 65 million. I just think you
Yeah.
should just be really clear about it and say for 65 million, we expect them to hit these goals, and just accept that you're going to probably end up spending 80 million on this player. Everybody should be happy with it or not happy with it. End of the day, the other thing I've noticed is who really gives a fuck how much this guy costs? This insistence of going to the all-time spend list and going down it and saying, well, you guys
Absurd. The
spent
whole
this,
thing
we
is
spent
dumb.
that. Like, why do we all care so much about what each other spend? That what you spend on a player changes from one year to the next ever since Neymar's price went skyrocketing up. Market prices are always different.
I was talking about this earlier. I agree with you completely. I was talking about this earlier. I think the main thing is if you're thinking about not how much you spent, but how you spent. Like, and this is what Liverpool have done really well, is they've spent really well. They've sold well, and then they've gotten money and they've bought expensive players, but players that fit right into their system.
Yeah.
This player may be that. I don't necessarily know that he is based on some of the statistics, and it's been 1 year. He's had one good season in Portugal, which isn't necessarily going to translate, but sometimes it could. So, and they've done a very good job at recognizing these moments. But yeah,
a few comments on Nunez, but before we get to that, when the money matters and when the price matters, the only time it matters when the player doesn't perform. When do you ever hear
100%.
the Van?
Yeah.
When do you ever hear the Van Dijk cost 75 million or Allison cost 70? Never, because they've performed beyond that fee
Yeah, I
and
agree.
added.
I-
How often do you hear
would
that Harry
always-
Maguire cost 80 million? How often does that come up?
yeah,
Constantly.
Every time.
I can list 5 other players that are bigger flops than him, but he's the poster boy for flops, even though he plays
Right
every
now he
single
is,
game.
but I can name about 4 Chelsea forwards that fall into that one as well, right?
I can name
Yeah,
a
yeah.
75 million pound backup goalie at Chelsea that nobody ever talks about.
Great call.
We spent 65 million on Ndebele, and he was a complete flop.
Right.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But for some
Yeah.
reason, this is
It
kind of the
happens.
shitty thing. Is like poor Harry Maguire is always the poster boy. for the
Lately,
overspend.
yeah.
It is United.
Ever
You
since
guys,
he
He plays for
are-
United.
You guys
Yeah, he
are
plays for United.
You know, you always talk
Anyways,
about, we're
my
United.
point.
So.
My point I
We're
was going to
United.
make is when you pay too much for a player, it does matter if there's an opportunity cost. If you have 120 million to spend in the summer and you blow 80% of it on one
I agree
player,
with that. Absolutely.
that's where it's like that's what matters.
It's
So
misspending.
I
right?
look at
Misspending.
Liverpool and go, what do they need for this summer? They needed what they got. They spent what they got
Yes.
on the best available young player that has a
Quick-
lot of
quickly
opportunity to
without
be
fuss
very
as
good.
well, and just
And
didn't.
they just said,
didn't
"Fuck it!"
fuck
Like
around,
we're
just spent the
we're
money
just
because they knew
we're
they
gonna
had
spend
to.
the money to make sure we get him, so nobody else starts sniffing. We've heard Lewandowski wants out of Bayern. We don't want Bayern sniffing this guy.
It's
around. Like,
ambition
let's
to
just get him.
stay at the level they've been at without any transition period, and they've been doing that really well. And arguably what this looks like is a very good version of that. But does it translate? We won't know until this season. But arguably,
I'm actually gonna give
under Klopp. I think he'll be very good.
I'm going to give my opinion of this and say I think this is a bigger gamble than a lot of people are talking about.
I agree, but I'll also
I
say
think
this.
gamble, but I also think like what we've seen with other players who've come into that system.
Well, I'm gonna break down why it's a gamble before anybody goes off on any kind of segue about this, because here's the thing: we've talked about it being a 1-season wonder. I think statistically he has overperformed on his XG, which tends to be a statistical anomaly more than
Who's the manager there, guys? Sorry to interrupt. Who's the
No
manager?
idea.
Benfica. Who
You
gives
guys
a shit?
don't know? Yeah, I'm
No
just wondering
idea.
if that was a thing or not.
And I think it's also fair to say that the goal scoring in Portugal is at an easier and higher level than it is
Bruno
than what you're going to
Fernandes,
get anywhere else.
Obviously, it isn't.
Yeah.
Everybody in Europe plays a high line. The Premier League doesn't play high lines. They have low block teams. Nobody else plays the way that he's used to, like running in and having all that space and time. And that's me concerned about what the statistics for this season look like. What I'm also concerned about is that he's a very young player who's already missed a significant amount of time with injuries and surgeries on things that
Really,
You
I
hope-
didn't know. I didn't know.
Yeah.
that
you hope get
that stuff.
better.
Yeah.
But he had knee surgery last season and he
It's a
ended up
big
missing
risk,
like
then.
89 days of potential gameplay, which is like a huge like
It's 3
one
months.
season ago. It's 3 months of injury time. He had one good season where he bounced back, but like you would think that would be accounted for in the Benfica price and the ask. And again, it goes to, I think Liverpool were committed to spending on whatever they could. I think they have the money. It probably won't be that big a deal. I don't know that there was an obviously better choice for them, but I do look at this and say, I think we can all be fair with what the gamble of it looks like. And there are things like his injury record that nobody seems to talk about, but I think are probably worth highlighting as this is why it's a gamble.
Can I ask you guys a question about it real quick? So
Yeah.
so he's essentially replacing Sadio Mane, who's I think
No, he would be replacing Firmino at the front of a three. He's a
so
striker.
who's replacing Mane then? Because Mane's
No.
Mane's going to
I
David-
think
David is
Diaz.
wrong.
No,
David is
Diaz will be playing on that left side next season. I'll bet you both any amount of money you want.
the reason I'm asking him is, will his numbers, or do you guys think his numbers will fill in for the numbers that are going to be lost by the players that leave in those positions? You know, is he going to give them the same thing that you're getting out of a Sadio Mane or
He's a goal scorer,
or
so I
Firmino?
see him in the middle with Diaz on the left and Salah on the right, with Jota jumping in either in the middle or on the left.
Yeah,
Because
he can fill in for both.
But Paul, I know what you're gonna say. He does come off the wing, but he plays centrally most of the time at Benfica, and it's his preferred position. The comment I'd make about Nunez is if you look at him statistically as a player and like his control on the ball and his passing, he's the polar opposite of what a Klopp player looks like. Like they keep the ball, they hold the ball, and maybe it's a coaching thing, but I do think it's a huge risk. But if any team in the league needed this position and this player, like if I take off my United hat, you take off your Spurs hat, it's a great signing. But Paul's right. I think there's more risk than people realize. Like United were heavily linked to him, and I'd had chats with Paul and other people. I didn't want Nunez because of the gamble and the amount of money.
Liverpool are due for an error, aren't
But
they?
for
Like, aren't
Liverpool,
they due for an error at some
they're
point?
totally due. But
Come
I
on,
mean,
get it done. Fuck it up.
on paper,
It's not,
like,
and it's if anybody's listening to this, it's not like Man United going, "Oh, he wasn't good" or whatever. It's just like where we need to spend money, we can't spend
It
Right.
isn't the
close to
position you
80
need to be
million on one
addressing.
position
Yeah.
that we're kind of okay at right now.
Because Liverpool are so much further ahead in their recruitment process and how they
Oh,
do it
yeah.
that they really just know it's a bit of a machine and they're finding the right moments when to pick and choose. It's a
I
risk,
think-
but it's a calculated risk. It's a very.
I think you're going to
calculated
see him play more often than not off the left. Sadio Mane and Diaz are there, but Sadio Mane is going to go. So I think Diaz and Nunez become the guys on the left. I think he fills in when Bobby is injured, which is going to happen eventually.
Bobby's
I
getting
think-
up there though, isn't he?
I actually think
Jota.
Jota plays centrally for that system because the way Klopp has his striker play, that he's so instrumental in bringing the wingers into play, where he has to have that guile and intelligence, and that's what Bobby does so well.
Yeah.
Nunez is not that kind of striker. He's a direct bullet train straight down the middle. So I think he's going to start off learning the Liverpool way and getting acclimated, playing more on the left next season. And then eventually maybe he becomes the striker down the middle. But I think the Jurgen Klopp striker is a different model of striker, and it's not this guy. Unless they're going to like
it's not.
massively change tactics. And I don't think they need to do that. I think it's still just a tweak because I think Jota has proven that he can play down the middle, and Bobby's still there.
Jota has been so shafted in this scenario because he.
I don't know about that, man.
Well-
Jota at some points last year made that number 9 role his, and
But
Firmino
this
was
is
on
my
the
point.
bench a lot.
Jota came in though initially and was just like was killer and was playing a ton, and then when Diaz came in, it kind of took us. It was just weird. It was like he's probably like, why are you getting another player in this position? I just showed that I could do this, right? So yeah.
You know what? I think it's gonna be between Jota and Nunez long term for this middle role, because Jota, when he gets to service, is a better goal scorer I find than Bobby. But hey, that front line.
Bobby's build-up play is ridiculous, though. He just sees a lot, right?
And again, if Salah goes in a year or two, and Salah's 30, right? If they can't lock him down, at least they've got still a front three with Diaz, Nunez, and Jota. They still have a three they can put out.
They do, but I'm going to say it, and this is what gives me hope. It's starting to become a watered-down version of what they were.
Of course. But you could never replicate
we're
that.
We're all hoping that that's the case because they just finished like 1 point behind City with 92 points or whatever it was.
Dude,
Let's transition nicely into
they're still gonna be
watering
very
down
good
of
next year.
City. Transitioning into the watering down of City. So,
yeah, there we go.
reports
Is he
that,
gone? Did he leave? Is it
No,
Bernardo
no.
Silva
That's
are
reports. Okay.
are on the target list for Barcelona. He has had conversations in the past, reportedly, with Pep Guardiola, where he was prepared to leave and he wanted to go. Promises were made. I think what probably ended up happening is you're an important player. Give me one more year is probably what ended up happening in that conversation, with an agreement that we will move you on and we will not keep you in a golden cage and that we will not price you out of a move. I think Bernardo Silva is the kind of player that immediately goes to a kind of a fucked up country, I almost said country, but a fucked up team in a Barcelona, and I think he improves them, and I think they can get him for a bit of value. But what you start to notice is that this team that doesn't lose are starting to bring in these young players like a Jack Grealish and a Haaland, who are talented as all hell. But I don't know how much we know about their character. They're always capable of winning because they have guys who have real character that step up and win. So Silva is one of those guys. So his absence, I think, will be felt from that they find a way to win perspective. But they're also going to lose Gunjoden, who is going to be going off this summer, and Fernandinho, or Fernando, I can't remember which one. Fernandinho, he's also gone this summer. So it's one of those things where, like, you look at these three guys, they may not have major minutes throughout the course of the season, but they're major contributors to the character of that team. The guys that show up and tend to win the game for them late in the game, if it's usually
are you suggesting that potentially this upcoming season, that the two teams that have dominated the Premier League for the last little while, that they may be in a small enough transition that
I'm looking for cracks.
Brian's getting blood flow. Hold on a second though. Are you sure? Are you sure Gundogan's going? I know Fernandinho's looking to go. And
Fernandinho wasn't playing a lot at the end of last season anyway.
Well, he's old, man. He's been there for Fernandinho, I know, but Gundogan, I think they're trying to make it work though with him, and I think he wants to stay.
No, the most recent reports is he's looking for a move. He's actively,
really
looking for it. He doesn't play enough. He wants to.
Well, let's pause on that, right? Because let's go back to the Silva thing, right? We all remember at this time last summer, if not advanced, Silva was like, "I want to move, make a move happen," and him and Pep got into it. Pep said, "No, stick it out." The first half of the season last year, you could make an argument that Bernardo Silva was the best player in the Premier League.
He was incredible.
He was City's best player by far for the first half. But then Pep did that whole rotation thing. Foden really caught fire. Can you really blame, and this goes into the City thing, right? And you could maybe talk about Grealish in a year or two. There's got to be certain players, and I think it started happening with Sterling. When you're that good, you want to play every week. I don't know that everyone buys into the rotation. And when I would even watch City games, I'd see Silva on the bench. I'd be like, why the fuck is this guy on the bench?
I think you buy into it in the first little bit. In the first little bit, because you're like,
maybe.
oh, I'm going to win. And then you've won one. Maybe you won the Premier League once, or you've won the League Cup plus an FA Cup, or you've won the league. You know what I mean? You've okay, I've done this a bit. It's been a few seasons. I kind of want to just be playing every week, and you've gotten all the stuff out of it, and you decide to move on. It happens with players at
we used to see this at Barcelona years ago with Fabregas and Henry on the bench. I also don't like the idea of world-class players that I get to see once every couple of, like, you know what? No offense to any team, United, Spurs, City. There should never be a team with that many automatic starters on the bench. I just don't think it's normal. I don't think it makes sense. Depth is depth, but like seeing Mahrez benched like 3 weeks in a row.
We all know the issues here,
right? Like, but like, what I'm saying is this: if I'm Bernardo Silva, whether it's Barcelona, whether it's Chelsea, whether it's Spurs, wherever, get your move and go play every week because you fucking should be. You're that good. Like, I don't know. I don't like the idea of these world-class players. I remember
they get paid a ton of money for it. It doesn't matter.
You know what, man? Go to it. There's other great clubs.
I agree, Connie.
It's money, but I mean, if you think about it as say you're not a regular starter, trophies, but you have 3 years at Man City. Imagine the competitions you're in, the finals you're around.
You're playing in every tournament.
The environment of winning you're in for 3 years. Like, maybe you're conceding playing time to be a part of that, but your career is defined by those 3 years. The rest of your career can be about, cutting your own path or playing or whatever. But like you're going to have those 3 to 5 years of just like being a winner and making lots of money in the process.
And he's done that, and he's done great there. Here's the other thing, and I think we should talk about it because we're talking about money. If Bernardo Silva does go to Barcelona, he knows he's going to have to take a major wage cut. Apparently, Barcelona are approaching a lot of their first-team players before this season starts, asking a lot of them to take pay cuts. like on their wage structure already. So
I'm not surprised. I mean,
they're in a real shambles with financials. So if this move is going to happen, it will be a footballing move for him where he's like, hey, I'm going
I
to
wanna play for
Barcelona.
Barcelona, yeah.
You got it, right? Which you got to respect a little bit as a player, as a
yeah,
footballer.
for sure. I mean, if he's done it all at United or at City.
No Champions League. No Champions League.
Yeah, I mean, other than that, but I mean, and maybe that's the case. He goes somewhere where he's going to definitely get Champions League or potential. Go, yeah.
No, he's just gonna go enjoy
he'll be
his
fine.
football
He'll be fine.
at the
He'll be
Spirit Animal Club that is the way he plays. He's gonna go to
Yeah,
Barcelona.
exactly.
He's
True.
he's a perfect fit for Barcelona. He'll love it there.
Yeah.
Agreed.
Trading in the rain of Manchester for the beaches of Barcelona. More power to you, my friend. If it happens,
Enjoy yourself.
I hope I never see you play in the baby blue again in my entire life.
Agreed. They have to sell players to make that happen, though.
Yeah, that's true.
So
Eriksen,
we talked about this a bit already. But
who is, a really good feel-good story, is a free agent. He's a wanted man. He's there for a lot of teams. To frame it, he will not be a week-to-week player. Just at 30 with a heart condition, he probably wouldn't be expecting to be every single week player, which opens up a lot more opportunities, funny enough, to go to certain clubs. He has been approached by at least 3 clubs that have been reported. It has been reported that Man United have made an offer to him as
Brentford
one of those
made
clubs.
an offer as well.
Brentford certainly were trying to tie him up. A lot of talk of him owing Brentford, which is ridiculous.
Yeah, that's dumb.
But
Spurs have talked to him, as far as I know, or at least
he's just a wanted man. And this isn't going to be a game of who's he going to pick. There's so many contributing factors of where he ends up and what his final decision is. But I'm just curious to know with you guys, with a player like this, who's as good as he is, obviously we all know how good Eriksen was. And he was on the decline, and then seemed to get back to a level of his best last year when he went to Brentford. But has these health issues. Is he somebody that you feel like is just worth a punt, or is he somebody it's even more than just a punt? Like, he can come in, you can rely on this guy as a rotational player or even a starter, if that's what you think. Like,
Brian, you go first.
Yeah, I'd like to start off with this concept of him having a health issue. Now, he had a health issue, but that health issue has been dealt with. Forget the name of the machine that is, sorry.
Pacemaker.
It's a pacemaker.
It's a pacemaker. So the pacemaker that he has inside himself has been used for years from a number of players. Italy's reluctance to use it is a strange occurrence in medicine that sometimes happens, but he's not unhealthy. He could play a full match. He can run the same way as he could before. There's no risk of doing what he's done, and that's the reason why the Premier League are letting him play. So you're not really worried about that at all. And of course he may be, and that may be something that's separate from what's the reality of the situation. Eriksen is. Considering what he did for Brentford in that season, I think they lost like 8 or 9 out of the 10 games in a row. And then Eriksen came in January, and boom, they went and won like 6 or 7 in a row, or 6 or 7 out of 8 or 9, and they were like, boom, they're back again. His statistics were ridiculous, and he basically made them a completely different team just with the things that he does. So any team who gets him in their side means they'll get a player who can play an entire season, a lot of football, will run a lot, and I have no doubt that there's no issues with his health. And whether it's United or Spurs, and I think those are the 2 teams that are going to likely get him. And I think it'll probably be Spurs, but that may be a little bit of bias in me. But either way, it's going to be one of those 2 teams for good reasons on either side.
But let's get into it, though, Brian. Let's pretend it's Spurs, because I'm going to talk about what I think he fits in Man United, but I want to hear from you. You've just signed Basuma, and you've got a lot of players in midfield. And I think Paul even framed it. Where does he play? How much does he play? And what impact does he have?
I already spoke about it, and I'll do it again if you want. Do it quickly. He plays in when Spurs need to switch from a 3-4-3 to a 3-5-2. He's the added midfielder and gives you creativity and shifts the everything you do in that midfield and gives you more power, control, and creativity, and allows Son and Kane to get in behind without having Kane to drop deep and the other one to run off of it. You've added an attacking player because you need to do it, and it's a very easy thing to do, and it's hard to defend. And Eriksen initially at Inter when he went there, and Conte was managing him. Didn't quite get it initially, and eventually he became very important to Conte and what he did, coming off the bench a lot of the times, and sometimes starting, but depending on the system. But having a player like that in strength and depth in that position with that type of player, it's a creative player, because Basuma, Skip, Bentancur, and Højbjerg are not creative players. They're all kind of like a version of an 8, maybe a 6. Eriksen is a version of an extended 8 and a 10.
He's a hybrid 8 and 10, isn't he?
Yeah, so he's in that space where he's going to create. So it's a player. It's a luxury player, arguably, because it's not something that many teams have. But that's what he would give to Spurs, and he'd be incredibly valuable. Spurs will get that player one way or the other, whether it's Eriksen or somebody else who's available. But that's something that that Conte wants, and they have a relationship, and I think that relationship will likely ending up at Spurs. But he also has a relationship with Ajax and Erik ten Hag. So there is that, and I recognize.
I mean, how much do you know about the actual relationship between Eriksen and Conte? Because it wasn't
great.
No, it didn't start out great, and this is what I know about it.
I don't know if it ended super well either.
No, it ended well. They've actually both come out and said, "I'd love to work with him again." Like, this is there's been no issue with that. There was a period of time where it started out, it was like it wasn't working, and then Conte found a way to fit into it, which is what I just explained. That 10 position in the shifting, and then they ended up playing. I think I was talking to Matty Hayes about it earlier. It wasn't a 3-5-2; it's a 3-4-1-1, and so there's or a 3. Anyway, whatever. The shape is different when Eriksen's in it, and he offered something that when you have that in your team, it changes what you can do to another side. So
here's what I'll say
super
about
important
Eriksen.
for Spurs either way.
Here's what I think: we buried the lead on this. He's for free. He's a free player, and we all saw what he did at Brentford. The big question was, is he going to be healthy? I agree with everything you said there, Brian. I don't think there is a health issue anymore. And he looks to be playing at an elite Premier League level. We watched him for Brentford. He wasn't just good. He was very good. Would I want him at United? I would absolutely want him at United. And I think having him, and I don't want to get into it too much, but if United did pull off the Frankie de Jong thing, which I think is starting to become likely.
Him and Eriksen would be ridiculous.
Well, this is what I mean. It gives United midfield more of that fluidity that a Manchester City have, because it's technical players who can move off the ball, advance the ball, but also control and dictate a game.
Also work hard. Eriksen's
this is it, right?
When he played for Spurs, he ran more than anybody every game.
Same Brentford, though. He controlled the game for Brentford. He dictated.
It's kind of
what De Jong does deeper for every team he plays for. But if you coupled him with it, I want Eriksen very badly. But most of the reason I want 2 things is, one, he's free and he looks like an elite player. I fucking hope United pull it off very badly. Both of those in the midfield right away.
I'd be disappointed if you did, but I would.
But
be.
And you also know, Brian, we have Bruno Fernandes, who's gonna probably play higher in that 10-8 role. I think these guys can sit behind and they could actually look like a midfield. I would love them. And I actually think he could be a starter.
Be missing a bit of physicality in that midfield,
and that's the other thing too, right? I am worried, and I don't want to get too deep into it, but I can see a De Jong and an Eriksen coming in and the way they operate, and almost pushing a Fernandes to the bench. And Erik Ten Hag kind of
slightly add to this conversation, not to get too tactical. But I have something for Dave to think about. Tadic, who is a regular player for Ten Hag's Ajax, is not a very big player, has the same kind of profile as a Bruno Fernandes, and he plays off the left wing. Freeing up.
Yeah, I know. I don't. For Eriksen?
For Eriksen.
Yeah, I don't know.
There is a way where you can meet up the midfield, have Eriksen play and Bruno play. Again, I think he's an option.
I still think you'd be missing physicality in that midfield.
Well, you don't.
I agree.
No, hang on a second. I don't think you can say you're missing physicality, because what I just said is there's a hole there. Like, we have to fill that hole.
Yeah.
But would be.
I must have misunderstood what you meant.
It would be De Jong plus whoever the fuck ends up being the physical midfield beside
I get you. I missed that. Sorry.
Right.
Yeah.
But this would be.
And I would want like a Ruben Neves. Yeah.
Cheating the puzzle by having Fernandes go out on the left wing, which is what, to great effect, Ten Hag's been doing at Ajax by having Tadic play on the left wing.
What's his
But I
shape?
just-
Ten Hag. What's Ten Hag? What's the
He
shape does
he
Ten
can
Hag play?
do like a
4-3-3.
4-2-3-1, but it turns into when he's got his team going, it's a 4-3-3. The problem I see
He's a
with Bruno
transformer.
more and more is, and this is when we talk about De Jong and we talk about Eriksen. I don't know when Bruno is asked to run to play in a system. So when Ragnick had United saying full press, do this. Bruno Fernandes almost got lost behind at the pace of the Premier League because it used to be before under Ole, play in that 10 role, have as much freedom as you want, and
Walk
go.
around.
Yeah,
find your
and
space,
I don't
yeah.
give a fuck what anybody says. Like if you give him that role in any team in Europe, his creation ability it's world class. It's elite. He can score goals. Ten Hag doesn't play football that way. He's more like a Klopp. He's more like a Pep,
Ericsson
where it's
fits
yes.
into that system.
You watch
for
Kevin
sure.
De Bruyne. Does Kevin De Bruyne ever stop moving? No. Fernandez isn't that guy.
No.
And I do worry, and Paul and I have talked a little, I do worry that Bruno might be that guy. If he can't adapt, he might be the guy left behind. But I
Sell
think
him.
Ericsson,
Sell him
Well,
now. You got value for it.
I mean, listen,
Hag,
everyone's going to
if
get a
he's not-
chance.
he's not a
Give him a
Ten Hag
chance
player.
under
Let
a
them
new
work together
manager.
on
Yeah,
the training pitch.
exactly.
Get him out of your club.
But I
my
agree with Brian to a certain extent. Even with De Jong, I do think United's midfield still needs a little bit of steel,
Yeah.
especially with Matic going to Roma.
Oh my
like,
God, guys,
yeah.
It's such a like it's not even worth talking about. Everybody
Yeah,
on the planet.
yeah.
knows
We've had
fucking
the
United.
we've had the
Like,
conversation for months.
Yeah,
and
but
we're-
I want Ericsson, and he's free, and he'd be a great signing. I hope it happens.
yeah, me too.
So the last
Oh.
point of the day, who knows what's going on with this fucking story, but like it
Strange
does
one,
seem
this one,
like
isn't it?
there is
not
some
strange.
smoke. So if there's smoke, there's some fire.
Kinda strange.
Possibility that Lukaku is maybe engineering some sort of loan back to Inter Milan, having seen the writing on the wall at Chelsea after a very sizable purchase back to Chelsea. One season into it, it feels like it might be experiment over, time to move on. I don't know if this feels like something that can even be allowed to happen after just one season. Like, I don't know if Chelsea would even like commit to just giving up on this that fast. And
There's
that's the
dialogue.
only thing that seems implausible.
I'd like to just chime in on it. I also think that it has to be taken into consideration. We have no idea what this version of Chelsea is going to do because it's completely different people in charge of the decision making. So, you know, what happened previously, this and why he was brought in and how, and what will happen now with the player that is under new management. It's I have no idea, but I mean, time up. I agree with you. I think like give him another chance, maybe, but at the same time, it's the same manager. So, you know.
Let me ask you guys a question. Do you think
know.
the last transfer last summer from Lukaku to Chelsea, do the two of you think that Tuchel pushed for that transfer?
I don't think so. I think it was probably well, maybe. It's hard to say. I think there was. I don't think he pushed for it. I think he probably was presented with the idea, and it was like, what are our other options? And they tried to figure out what the best scenario would be. And you know, obviously, there's the romance of him coming back to a club he loves, and him, you know, performing in that scenario. And they probably built it up, but.
Tuchel, Klopp, Pep, do you think that Lukaku could fit into Liverpool or Man City's team at the number 9 role?
They play different systems. I don't want to play that game.
He couldn't fit into any of them. At the high end of the Premier League, this guy's not good enough technically. I'm not saying he's a world-class goal scorer. He's not a good technical footballer. He does. Inter set up their entire team around him to get him the ball. Everton did it, and when you do that, he'll get you 20 goals. You can't play at the elite level of the Premier League with City, Liverpool, or Chelsea and have a Romelu Lukaku work in your 9. It doesn't. They're effective with Kai Havertz in a false 9 because they touch and they move the ball, technically create chances and score. He's not that elite player on the top 4, 5, 6 clubs in the world, and he knows it, and I think he wants to go back to an easier league where he's going to bang in 20 goals with barely taking a breath. Like, it's just not a fit. He's the one engineering this move. There's talk about it today where it's going to be a loan deal, but they want him to cover wages. But he wants out so badly, he's going to force it. And I think the way he's conducted himself at Chelsea with the comments, if you're a Chelsea fan or you're Tuchel, I think the best thing to do is get him away from the squad. But, man, that's a lot of money to have wasted on a player.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, 100%. It's nuts.
It
actually.
does. Again, this kind of I don't want to be the guy that says I don't know why everybody's so obsessed with like transfer fees, but if this ends up being a one season wonder for Chelsea and they don't recoup like all of it or a significant chunk of that money that they spend on this, this is going to have to go down as like one of the
worst transfers of all time.
Dude.
We got breaking news right now. I need to post breaking news if you don't mind. This is breaking.
It's not breaking. I told you about it before we went on air.
I know. I just saw it. Here we go.
Shut up. But hold on a second. Back to
I
Lukaku.
just had to do it for you, God.
What a piece of shit. Back to Lukaku. Paul, you'll remember this. United bought Lukaku for $90 million. We paid a lot of money to get him from Everton. United wanted him out, didn't fit in Ole's system. We held on strong, and got our 75 million from Inter. They wanted him badly. I think Inter know the situation. They're very good businessmen when it comes to football in Italy. They don't overspend. I think you're going to see this guy end up going there. I think it's going to be a loan this year, but they're going to get him for peanuts because it is just not working at Chelsea, and it's never going to work. I don't think so anyway. So I do think there's going to be a scenario where they do not recoup near as much money as they should for a player of this guy's quality. Let's be honest, in the right setup, Lukaku's a great goal scorer.
Yeah, absolutely. The right setup is the key thing, and the setup at Chelsea was just not remotely close to what, tactically speaking, what Tuchel does. That's why it seems to me like it was a romantic purchase, not a tactical or smart purchase for a player that you.
Paul, you watched him at United. You watched him at, like,
they needed a striker, but Tuchel's system is not the type of striker.
And that's what I'm saying. I'm backing it up. We tried to at United. We tried to play a fast counter-attacking where you have like a Harry Kane who can hold up the ball, quick first touch, move off. He can't do that.
No,
so unless you want to play based around your number 9, and you know what, Lukaku should have even known that before he made the move, but he probably got a boatload of dough for it.
yeah, for sure.
I don't know what I honestly would have a hard time saying I understand what went wrong at Chelsea where it went this badly. Because even if you look at the way Chelsea play with the wing backs they have, they're very good crossers of the ball. He's a very good poacher in the box. Like, it should not have been such an abject failure as it was. Everything you guys are saying is true, but he still should have had 10 to 15 goals fairly easily, at least against the lower level teams.
I agree with that. He was not clinical in the situations.
Yeah, he wasn't good. Yeah,
he wasn't good. But he also, when it comes to crossing the ball, he's not. But when it comes to being a poacher in the box, the ball usually comes to between the lines. It's not in the air. Like, he's not a header of the ball. That's not his thing. It's usually, it gets to those players around him, and it's a between the lines, just inside the 18-yard box. He gets on the end of it, he slices it in whatever corner. That's his bread and butter. That was not remotely close to what Chelsea were doing. You got two very good crossers of the ball on either side, thrown in the box. He's not a Harry Kane or a striker type of striker who's going to get in there and get his head on it. He's going to get beat by most defenders.
I would agree with Paul to a certain extent. I do think at the early parts of the season, I don't think that he was getting service. But there were parts where when he was, it was kind of almost Werner-esque where he wasn't doing a lot about it. But we also have to be fair to him a little bit. The second half, if not the last quarter of the season, he wasn't starting and he wasn't getting played a lot because it was very clear that it wasn't working.
It wasn't good enough, yeah.
But I would put it back to you, Paul. Do you think it's that he had a bad season, or that the system didn't work, they didn't get the most out of? What did you think happened with Lukaku this past season?
I think he's better than what he showed. Like,
I would agree with that.
I don't even think that's a very controversial thing. I don't think this is like one of those things where everybody wants to be, oh, he's shit. Well, no, he's not shit. I mean, he's a very good player. He just was having a hard time fitting into the system.
Oh,
and
it's so people.
But like,
Tuchel backed him too. Tuchel said he's not having a great run of form. We think we can make it work. I think he shit himself and said, I can't play this system. I'm not tech. I think he's running away a little bit. I hope.
Yeah.
I'm
I think
wrong,
if he wants to
but
go,
it
then
feels
he's running
that
away.
way. Yeah,
if he wants to
he
go,
does.
then he's running away. My only
100%.
point is, I think everybody is treating this like such a defined black and white situation because he had one season. I do get tiresome of people talking about one season and drawing conclusions on players based entirely on.
Yeah, he's going to
what
go somewhere
just
else,
happened.
wherever he goes, and score a ton of goals for somebody.
Here's the thing, though. I would agree with that
He's
statement.
gonna, like, score 30 and win another title.
He's driving it though. He is literally driving. He's trying to drive himself out of Chelsea to Inter. I think if he just kept his mouth shut and and talked to Tuchel and said, listen, I didn't have a great season. Trust me, I could be better. Tuchel would be like, yeah, man, let's get back on board. He wants out so badly and is the one driving. It's kind of a shame, really.
It is, yeah.
I question whether or not Chelsea are going to allow it to go down as easily as that. That's
a good point.
I think this is more my interest is like, I get why he wants to go. I get all the all that about him. I just question whether or not this is going to happen because Chelsea have invested so much in him and it's been one season. I think there's a lot of opportunity to sit down and be like, give us one more season. Let's fix this. We can get better out of you.
Yeah.
Like, you never really know these things, but if he goes to like Inter Milan next season, they're going to win the title. He's going to beat up on Juventus in front of Paul Pogba, and he and Paul Pogba were going to like French kiss at the end of the game because they're best friends. And
they're getting Dybala too. Dybala's going into
hard.
as well.
It looks like it.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't miss him in the Premier League either. Like some of the stuff he said when he first got to Chelsea into the Italian press, even I was like, oh fuck, you don't say that.
Yeah, douchey.
You don't say that. No, you're a douche. Get out of here.
Yeah.
So that's the show, boys. Lots going on. Obviously, the transfer window is a thing. Dave Convery is committed to spending 6 months talking about his thoughts on the transfer window. Expect to see a video next year.
Do you want me to do a United video? I mean, I'm down to do one. I'd actually like to do one. Why don't you do one with
I don't know,
me?
fans. Comment if you want to see Dave Convery do a United
do a video for a channel that does content for a video.
I don't know. Brian, would there be interest in if I did like a once a week or once every 2 weeks United transfer update kind of rumor thing?
Yes,
I could talk about it at nauseum. I spend 6 to 7 hours a day reading and watching shit.
You the viewer, let us
just
know. Comment
amazing.
if you want to see regular content about transfer rumors for individual clubs, specifically Man United
Basically,
or any
what
other
this
club.
channel is about. Do we want
Comment.
to do that?
And also
I mean,
like and subscribe.
We kind of do these every week, but I mean, listen, I could really go down the rabbit hole if you want, but I don't know who's interested in that.
Well, we'll talk about it offline.
Can you go down the groundhog hole? Because it feels like we're there again.
Can you go down a hole?
I did videos. I thought my videos were good.
So yeah, it's been great. Thanks everybody for watching. We're 56 minutes in. We covered a lot of things.
Frankie de Jong.
We'll be back a little bit here and there over the next little while as we report the silly season as often as we can.
Who's up next for Spurs, Bri? Who's next on the list?
Next on the list is, I think, Christian Eriksen will be announced next week. So I think we'll Basuma tomorrow, Eriksen on Tuesday. And then maybe one more player before the
No, you're talking about United transfers. I'm talking about Spurs. Who's Spurs gonna sign?
You wish, buddy. You wish.
Would you be pissed if he signed for United?
Not pissed. No, I would get it because I think the idea of a change, and of course, the manager. There's reasons for both. And you could see it from a player perspective. I wouldn't condemn him for it. I think he, despite him saying earlier in the season saying he Champions League isn't that important. I think it is important enough if he had the choice between the two and the offers were similar, he would pick the one that had the Champions League. Now, whether Spurs offer the same amount of money or they can offer the same amount of money that the United can, I think that's what it would come down to, and that whether or not that money matters to him would make the difference. It's money or Champions League. Which one do you care about more? And we'll know when he makes the decision if those offers are on the table.
Paul, where does he sign?
Well, if he wants to go to a regular run-of-the-mill club or the world's largest club.
The world's largest in your heads.
Top 3 or 4 still.
Yeah. I don't know.
Financially, I recognize all that, but
I'm with Brian.
Nobody really cares right now, guys.
I don't.
True.
I see the pros and cons pretty clearly of what his decision would be based on.
Yeah.
I don't think he had the greatest time when he left Tottenham. I think there's a documentary showing him eating yogurt by himself and looking sad. I think
that's a documentary that you shouldn't necessarily trust.
That's fine, Brian. I think he and Conte seem to have, it sounds like, ironed some stuff out, but even you never know.
Some stuff out.
I think if he's looking at the two teams, I think he probably feels like he could play more regularly with Man United as we are right now.
That's probably true.
And I think he probably has a more direct conversation with Ten Hag about where Ten Hag would play him and how he would play him. And I think even
A
Ten
more
Hag would
direct
probably
conversation with somebody who hasn't ever been his coach to somebody who.
well,
someone
he
who
has worked
someone who hasn't benched him, someone who hasn't like sat him a lot. That's the only thing I would say.
Give me
So
a
right now-
so dramatic.
Ryan
Tony.
and Dave,
So
hang on a second,
dramatic.
because I want to clarify. When I say direct conversation, I mean like he can actually tell him specifically where he would want to play him and how many points in the game.
But you don't think
it
you
wouldn't
could
be
do
a,
that with Conte?
it wouldn't be a
'cause
flexibility
Conte's
thing.
system. I get what you're saying. I get what you're saying.
I think
fair,
because
fair.
he's an
And
option for Conte.
Build it around him rather than
Right.
Yeah.
He can walk in and say, here's how I play.
piece of the
Here's what
puzzle.
I'm worried about with my squad right now. Here's where you would plug into it. And here's what I think that translates into how many games you would play.
Do you think trophies matter or potential for trophies matter?
I think
Like who's better? Which
I-
one's a better team
if-
and has more
if
potential? Based on the
potential for
management?
trophies don't matter. I don't want him coming to Man United.
Yeah.
No, I just okay, fair enough. I just mean, which team do you think it's more likely with the management that
I think he wants to play more though, bro. I think he's more worried about playing regularly and getting his career back. But I don't think he plays as much right now. If that Spurs midfield is starting to look real nice, whereas you look at United's midfield, it's actually a laughing stock. So he might say, "Hey, guess what, man? I slide right in here."
Or do you want to play with the ones that like look real nice?
I don't know.
I don't
dude.
know. I'd want to play with.
Yeah, you know what? You're right though. I'm curious. I'm also curious to see what he decides
I
and
just
why.
remind everybody,
much
like,
fun.
yeah, we had a really
So
bad
much
season
fun.
last year, and there was a lot of contributing factors for that. And we finished sixth, but the season before we finished second. Like this attitude that you seem to have that we're just completely mid-table because you finished
Nobody said mid-table.
a couple of spots above
Nobody
us.
said that. Nobody
Like
said
a
anything
couple
like
of
that.
spots above us on the table, and this attitude you have about, and because we're on Champions League, like
It's
enjoy
not
it
an attitude,
until the
Paul.
first round is
It's a
over.
fact. You're not in the Champions League. You almost
We were last year, and how'd that work out
Right.
for us, right?
Last year,
Like,
You also understand
now
that
you
between Spurs,
barely missed the Conference League.
but
You almost
also
finished below
understand
West Ham.
Between Spurs and
So I have
Tottenham,
every
we're
right
a
to take the
much
piss,
bigger
man.
and
Sorry.
prestigious club than you guys.
I don't care about what you were. I'm talking about where we are right now.
No, currently we are a much bigger and prestigious club than you guys. That's
Sure.
a
You
fact.
know
in
that,
your head,
Brian.
in
Brian,
your
come
head-
on.
In your head and financially, 100%. Where
Yeah.
players might go and why is a different question. And I think if you say it's otherwise,
It is a
you're
different
being
question,
dishonest.
but the size of the club, the
I
reputation,
don't care
and global
about the
reach of the
size. I
club.
care about where the players
I'm
want to
saying
go.
players
and why.
care about that, Brian. I'm being very explicit about
They
it.
do.
That's a thing.
lot
that
of them
players
do.
Care about,
Some of them care
and
to
Man
an
United
extent.
still bring to the table when it's
Yeah,
us and
but
Tottenham.
you're going to a Man United team that's been in disarray since Sir Alex Ferguson left.
and then he's gonna have to
Period.
consider that as well.
Yeah, well, like
There's
honestly,
a lot
the
of
tru-
variables.
The truth is, I think if he's thinking about playing a lot, it gives United the edge. But again, if he does have a good relationship with Conte, he knows a lot of the players from Spurs. Maybe it's a comfort thing. I'm super curious to see what he does, but I do think
Spurs
it's
is
down
more
to
attractive for a player in his scenario, I think, than
I don't know about
United.
that. I think he might not play as much, especially given the Basuma signing. We'll see, though. This one's tough to watch. Do you think it'll be
Watch him
decided
go to
soon?
Inter Milan
I
Yeah,
know,
yeah.
eh?
Yeah, sure. I'm sure that'll happen probably.
with
We'll
his buddy
see.
Lukaku.
Anyway, we were done like 10 minutes ago. We ended up keep going.
Yeah.
We could
You know
keep
what it
going
is?
for hours,
Dave with
probably.
a secret, like Dave, like throws these like little like.
Okay, guys, you got a
grenade
question for you.
Always.
I got a question for you.
Always.
I got a question for you guys,
Curveballs,
okay? All right, you
baby.
ready?
Guys, just okay. We're gonna go, but one last question: Messi or Ronaldo?
Yeah.
How much time you got?
Yeah. How many hours are we going to spend on this? But yeah, thank you everybody for watching. Thank you for listening. It's the North End. Like and subscribe, please. All of the things. Check out the videos we're doing on a regular basis. Growing channel, having a lot of fun doing what we do. And this is the original crew here today. It's been a pleasure doing this with you guys as always. And we'll be back next week at some point, probably. We'll see what
Silly
happens.
season!
Yeah,
Silly
well-
season in full effect!
There'll be reports. I will do a video on Basuma when it gets announced tomorrow. I promise you on that. And of course, there'll be more coming. Most of them will be Spurs related because we're getting everything done before preseason. While these mugs fuck around for a while. But yeah, pleasure. It's we'll talk to you soon. And Paul, which one of these is the right video to play? What's it called?
The very bottom one.
Long intro video.
Yeah, that will always be the one.
Okay, thanks for watching, folks. See you later.
Bye.
This is the North End.